Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how I do colour planning and yardage calculations for granny square sweaters. So this is my Twinkling Granny Square Sweater pattern. There's a link in the captions under the video showing you my instructions for making this sweater. So it is more of a recipe really. I provide the pattern and the join and details for layout and everything for one size only. However, you can because it's in motifs, you could easily widen it to fit you or even make it smaller. So I want to make another version of this sweater in this Rowan felted tweed in these colourways. So on the label it's a DK, but in reality, so this Twinkling Granny sweater is DK, but in reality this is probably a bit more of a sport weight. So I just want to, I'm going to swatch to see how much yardage I'm using, and also to see if I've got enough yarn to make a sweater or whether I need to get some more. So I have actually got 4 balls of this watery, so I'm going to use that as my main joining colour, and then I've got 1 full ball each of these 4 colours. So when making the Twinkling Granny Square, I would recommend a minimum of 4 colours for the motifs if you want to get this same effect. So I'm going to show you how I work through this process. So the first thing I like to do is just to create a little chart with my colour sequences, because obviously I'm having I've got 4 different colours and I'm not going for a standard colour distribution on each motif. I'm going to be changing the colours around for each row. So I want to make sure I've got an even colour distribution, and I do that by creating a little chart and listing out all the possible colour combinations I can have with these 4 colours. So this is the border colour, so I'm going to, that's always going to be my last colour, or round 4, because the Twinkling Granny Square is a 3 round motif with the 4th round is the main colour and also the join. So the first thing I like to do is just to decide on which colours are going to be numbered as what, or lettered as what. So I like to letter the colours. So I've got colour A, B, C and D. And again, with these, another way to make it a bit easier to remember, because you'll be amazed how quickly you can forget which ones you've called A, B, C or D. I'm going to do from darkest through to light, so A, B, C and D. And then main colour, I'm going to call it main colour. Main colour is going to be this one. And then you can either write down the colours, but again I lose ball bands and sometimes the numbers don't mean anything to me, and the name, the colourways can sometimes be completely non-representative of the colour. So what I like to do is get a little bit of the yarn and a bit of sellotape and just stick it on this little chart, just to help give me a visual representation of the colour. So obviously you're not going to be using, you might need to use scissors, but this is quite a, you can break this Rowan felted tweed with your fingers. So do that for each colour. I know that's actually C, isn't it? That one, I've not done it in the right order, but it doesn't really matter. Doing it in a, whoops, that one's a bit wonky. That's fine. And again, doing it in a shade order, I just find it a bit easier to get my head round. comes to identifying each colour. And then last colour is this quite light colour. So there we are. So that's the first step, just identifying the colours. So I've already decided that because my motif is 3 rounds, the last round is always going to be the main colour because that is the join. So here I'm just going to put MC, 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 and I'll just keep adding as I go along. So what I like to do is work through the possible permutations, starting off with so motif number 1. I will do A as round 1, then do it in alphabetical order, B as round 2, and then in alphabetical order C round 3. So that's motif option 1 with main colour as the border. So then my next possible option with A as round 1 and B as round 2, and then we can have D as round 3 with the main colour as round 4. Motif number 3. So we've exhausted all the possibilities of A and B as round 2. So we're now going to switch to A as the first round and then C as the second colour. And then in alphabetical order that would then be B as the third colour. Number 4 would be A, C and D. And now we've exhausted all possible combinations with A and C as the round 1 and 2, which means we're now going to switch to B, C, D. And then we can have A, D, B, main colour as the last round. Number 6, A, D, C. So hopefully you get the general gist of this. This is also quite handy for seeing what colours look like next to each other. So when you're doing this, you can kind of see what the colours look like. Okay, so you get the general gist of that. Now I've exhausted all possible combinations for having A as the first round, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 possibilities. So that gives me a good indication of how many possibilities are going to be in total, because I've got 4 colours. So having round 1 as the first colour, then it can only do that four times. So 4 times 6 possibilities gives me 24. So I should have 24 possibilities with 4 colours and rounds 1, 2 and 3 equally dispersed. So that will be B, A, C, main colour. After a while, you know, so for example here I would just do the next 6 as B and then work through that same sequence. So B, A, C, B, A, D. B, can't have B, I don't like to have 2 colours next to each other, so I can't have B next to each other, which means the next colour will be C. B, C, alphabetical order. Next one is A, B, C, D. Next one would be D, and that would be A, and then that would be D, and then that would be C. Main colour like that. So then I would just complete this for all of the possible colourways. So obviously if you have it using a different kind of motif and you've got more rounds, you'll have more possibilities depending on how many colours you've got. And of course you could make the Granny Square, this Twinkling Granny Square Sweater with more than 4 colours. You might do 5 colours or 6 colours, maybe 6 colours mixed, and then the 7th colour would be round 4, the main colour for the join. So the number of possible motifs you can come up with really depends on how many rounds you're doing and how many different colours you're using. But this is as per my first first version of the sweater, 4 colours and 5th colour as the final main colour and the round. The next step that I like to do is transfer all of that information onto a spreadsheet, and then I like to colour code the cells to kind of match the colours that I'm using in my match the colours of the yarn. And then for me visually, as I actually use this sheet in my project bag with, you know, as I'm making the motifs, I then have a little column along the side where I tally off the colour combinations that I've made. At this point I'm still trying to work out whether I've actually got enough yarn to do this. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, because I kind of know how much I need because I've made that sweater before, but it was a different yarn. And also, you know, because I've made it before, I have a rough idea how many motifs I need to make. Sometimes if you're making a sweater from scratch, sometimes you need to swatch in the yarn you want to make it with, work out how many motifs you need, and then, you know, adjust your yarn quantities accordingly, which might annoyingly mean that you've got to buy some more. But anyway, I don't know if I need to buy any more yet. I'm still in the first stages. So this is my spreadsheet. I'm going to pick up 9 of these motifs, just random, and I'm going to make them up. And then I'm going to swatch, wash, block and allow to dry. And then I'm going to do some calculations to see whether I have got enough yardage to make this sweater. Because I know from my previous sweater that I needed 94 full motifs and 4 half motifs. So I should be able to work out whether what I have is enough. And if not, how much more will I need? Which I've done here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. And the first thing I need to do is work out how much yarn I'm going to need for the actual motifs without the border. So I'm going to weigh these before I join them together for my swatch. So I'm just going to use kitchen scales to weigh them. So that's 23 grams. Like that on my bit of paper. I haven't got much room here because of the camera, but so that's 9 motifs without border is 24 grams. So to work out how many grams per motif, I'm then going to do 24 grams rather, divided by 9. And remember, when you're weighing these motifs, don't sew the ends in, don't cut the ends off. You'll be amazed how much yarn you use just with the ends. Even though I'm very frugal with my ends, it does add up. So if you do your calculations, make sure you've left the ends on and not cut them off, because that's an important part of getting some level of accuracy. So I am going to use my calculator on my phone because my brain can't deal with that. 24 divided by 9 gives us 2.66666 recurring. So it's always best to round up in these instances. So what we've got is each motif, just the main motif without the border. Each motif is 2.7 grams. So from that, because I've made this sweater before and I know I need 92 motifs, 92 full motifs and 4 half motifs, which gives me a total of 4 times a half is 2, plus 92 is 94. So don't forget your motif count might be different. If you're making a different size sweater, you need to work out using how many motifs you need for for your sweater. So, I mean, that is pretty obvious, but just to be sure. So you can guess the next bit. I'm going to do 94 times 2.7 grams to work out how much yarn I'm going to need for all my motifs. So 94 times 2.7 gives me 253.8. So I'm going to round that up to 254 grams. So I already know straight away that I don't have enough yarn for that, because I've got 4 colours and each colour is only 50 grams. Which means I've only got 200. So I'm basically one ball short. Which is quite annoying, to be honest, because it does mean if I want to make the whole thing in this same yarn, it's quite a distinctive yarn, I'm going to have to buy another ball. Which then brings up the issue of how am I going to now distribute these colours? Am I going to buy one more ball of each colour, even though I only need one ball in total, because I've got to evenly distribute the colours? Or do I just buy one ball of my favourite colour and load the number of motifs I need to make more, using more of the colour I like? So I had a little think about it. I don't know, I do need to have a little think about it. Before I make a decision, I need to work out how much yarn my border is going to use. So I'll show you now how to work that out as well. So first of all, I decided to swatch anyway, regardless of knowing that I don't have enough of the 4 main colours. Just to see, but if I've got to buy some more anyway, I might as well check whether I've got enough for the borders, and do I need to buy another ball of yarn for the borders. So here's my swatch. Also wanted to check gauge, make sure my motifs are coming out the same size as the sweater I've already made. Otherwise, if it's smaller, the fit might not be right. And I also want to check whether I was happy with the fabric, how the fabric feels once it's been washed and blocked, and am I going to like that as a garment. I often find with crochet, especially with thicker yarns, that the drape for sweaters and stuff is really, for me personally, quite, I don't like it. It's a bit stiff. The garment never feels very sophisticated, because crochet tends to lend itself to a bit of a stiffer sort of stitch. However, this Rowan felted tweed does really work well with crochet, and you get a beautiful draping fabric that's very wearable. So I'm happy with that. Also gives you a chance to see, am I happy with these colour combinations? Because obviously when you've got the balls together, they look one way. Then when you actually make them up into the motif, they kind of take on a different personality. But I'm actually really happy with how these colours have turned out together. So I'm definitely going to not change that. Well, probably not going to change that. And then the next thing is to check my gauge. So I think these need to be about between 9 and 10 centimetres. So that looks fine. That looks good. So the gauge is good as well. So that's another problem we don't have to deal with, is adjusting because my gauge doesn't match. So now I'm going to work out how much I'm using for the borders. So again, I'm going to get my digital scales, make sure it's TED, measure that, that's 34 grams. I'm going to get my little bit of paper for calculations. So for this one, the important number was this, that was per motif. So here we've got 9 motifs with border, forgotten how to write, whoops, really forgotten how to write, is 34 grams. So again, we're going to do 34, the number, how much it weighed, divided by how many motifs we have. And again, that number needs a calculator. 34 divided by 9 is 3.7777 recurring. So again, that is going to be rounded up to 3.8 grams. So to work out how much the border is using, we're going to do that the full weight per motif, which was 3.8, and we're going to take away how much the main motif was, so the middle of the motif. So take away 2.7. You don't really need a calculator for that because it's 1.1. 1.1 gram per motif for the borders. So again, we're going to do 1.1 times however many motifs we need. So in my case, I already know that's 94. So I need 103 grams. Probably going to need more than that, to be fair, 103.4, because I like to add, I'm going to need to do some neck shaping, some borders, some cuffs. So even if I'm being very on the cautious side and I add on another 50 grams, because I know I've got 3 balls of this, sorry, I've got 4 balls, got 4 balls of this, which is so 4 times 50 is 200. So I'm only going to use just over 2 full balls for the main part of the borders, and then if I allow myself very generous 50 grams on top for everything else, I'm only going to be using 3 balls. So then that gives me a little option of perhaps I could use, if I've got 1 ball of that left over, perhaps I could use some of that to make up the shortfall in these motifs. However, I'm never going to want to use this colour as the 3rd round, because I don't want the 2 same colours together because it ruins the effect of the motif. I probably don't even want it in this 2nd round either, because I still feel that that's a little bit close to that border colour. I know I'm being quite pernickety here about the colour placements, but I think that's why, you know, this is part of the process that I enjoy, because this is something I want to wear and that I'm going to enjoy making, and if a little thing like that is going to be annoying to me, then, you know, this isn't a cheap project. It's going to take me a lot of time. I might as well have it exactly how I like it. So if I was going to use this turquoisey colour, which is called Watery, I would probably only put it in the 1st round. So that's an option. So for the minute, I think I am going to buy 1 more ball of this. This is actually a Cafe Facette colour. It's called Frost. I don't know why it's called Frost. I've never seen Lilac Frost, but it's actually changing. It's a colour changing yarn. So I think in terms of getting more of an interesting texture with the colour, I think it's better to buy another ball of this one, because then I'm going to get some more purpley blues in there. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to buy another ball of this, and I'm going to use some of this turquoise for some of the round ones, which means I'm probably not going to re-swatch. I'm probably just going to go ahead and make myself another spreadsheet. so here we are. I've made myself another spreadsheet here, whoops, where I've added in another 9 actually options for motif colours. Again, the reason I'm doing this is to mix up the colours as much as possible so that I don't accidentally use more than you know, too much of one colour and run out at the end. So I did actually make a couple of these motifs up just to see what they would look like, and I discovered that I didn't like this main colour as round 1 with the darkest colour next to it. I didn't like how that looked on this particular motif, so I actually stripped out 3 possibilities, which was main colour followed by colour A. So I stripped that out, but I kept the rest in. And then because I've got to make 92 motifs, I can now calculate how many of each option, each possibility I need to make. And this is where your Excel sum calculation comes in super handy, because what I've done is I've worked out that I've got 33 possibilities. That's still got 36 from where before I stripped out those 3. So it's got 33 possibilities, and I need to make 92. So if you just do 92 divided by 33, and then you round it up or down and near it to the nearest, and whatever number you come up with, in this case it was actually it was 3 in the end. You then just run the number 3 for each motif possibility, and you add it up at the bottom. And if it doesn't match the number that you need, i.e. 92, you just go through and just knock down or add on numbers to any particular sequences that you prefer the colour of. So because I know that I'm going to have more of this purple colour, anything that hasn't got the purple in, I've knocked down to only 2 motifs. So it means I'm going to be making more motifs with the purple, and I just kept doing that until I got to the correct number. So that's my process. Here I've also done it for the half motifs, and I will keep this with my project while I'm making the motifs, and I'll just tally them off. You might think, what a performance, I can't be bothered with that, I'm just going to go ahead and make it willy-nilly. That's absolutely fine, everyone's different. For me, this is part of the process that I actually really enjoy. I like experimenting with colours, seeing what they look like. Also, like to be in a situation where I'm not going to be too worried about running out of yarn, or you know, not having enough of one colour, or if I don't do this, I have a natural tendency to keep picking, even though I'm trying to make them randomly, I just keep picking the same colour and making the same colour sequences over and over again. There's something weird in my brain where I don't know why I do that, but and then I just end up using one colour more than the other. If you're not bothered about that and you've got plenty of yarn to do this with, then you don't need to do any of this. Other people just like to do it because it's just a way of keeping track of how many motifs you've made. I do find this way really useful. I'll show you. Show you another project in progress. So here's an example. I like to keep my Granny Square projects in a shoebox. So here's an example of my Colmore that I'm making in cotton, in 4-ply cotton, and here's my colour sequence chart. This one's slightly less sophisticated than that other one. I've actually got quite a lot of these colours, and I know I'm not really going to run out, although some of the colours I didn't have that much of. So for example, the this sort of mushroomy colour and this orangey colour. I didn't actually have that much of that, whereas this green and the cream, I actually bought that for a different project, so I've got multiple balls of that. With this one I also did colour loading in preference, so I don't really, not that keen on these sort of piggy pinks and this coral pink. I do like them together with all the other colours, but I kind of didn't want it to be too heavy on that. So once I'd worked out all the possible combinations using this is actually 5 colours. Once I'd worked out all the possibilities of the 5 colours, I then assigned a number, a preference number to each colour combination. So the ones that had no pink in at all are my favourite, and then the ones that have only the darker pink are my second favourite, and then the ones that have just the pink are sort of my third favourite. And obviously, because I've made a load of them, you do tend to get drawn to some combinations more than others. Some combinations you think, oh yeah, I really like that one. I could make a whole cardigan just from that one combination. So I've also put those as a higher preference number. And then the ones I like the least are the ones that have got two rounds of pink, the dark pink and the light pink. Those have been relegated to number 6 preference. So then what I did was I sorted the whole spreadsheet by preference. So all the motifs I like the most are at the top, and all the motifs I like the least are at the bottom. And because I need to make 146 motifs for this cardigan, I can then load the motif numbers. So for the ones I like the most, I'm going to make 6 of each, and then that goes down to 5 of each, 4 of each, 3 for the ones I don't like that much, 2 for those, and then only 1 of each for these ones that are heavy on the pink that I'm not very keen on. So that gives me a more nuanced and personalised colour distribution that leans more towards the colours I like. And again, this is a process that I find quite enjoyable, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that looks. I think it adds a kind of a finesse to the colour blending that you don't really get if you're just sort of doing everything exactly equally between all the colours. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if you do anything similar. I'm sure there's all kinds of fantastic ways that you are planning or managing or working out your colour combinations and your yardage requirements. And please do pop back to see how I'm getting on with my second version of my Twinkling Granny Square Sweater.